This is Maple Blues.
Welcome to the Maple Blues Podcast, the podcast where we talk about the NHL, the St. Louis Blues, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and other things hockey. I'm Note.
And I'm Charlie ND.
Welcome to episode 9, and we are approaching the end of the season. It is April, kind of early April when we're recording this, and we got a bit to talk about. So first, I'll talk about the Blues. When we last talked, it was the trade deadline. They had just traded Shen and Falk, and people thought they were done. But nope. The Blues have 78 points, and somehow, are still in the wild card hunt, which is crazy to me right now. I was on Team Tank, since post-deadline, but now they kind of busted their tank. They have an outside chance of potentially getting that second wild card spot, but unfortunately, this is the part where they don't control their own destiny because of that slump from October to February, and because they lost a few critical games a few weeks ago. They don't control their own destiny. Currently, they're at 78 points. They're only 3 points out. However, the Kings and Predators are tied for that last wildcard spot, and they're currently playing each other right now. So tomorrow, the Blues will wake up 5 points out. However, if there is one silver lining for the Blues, they have the regulation win tiebreaker between all the remaining teams still in the hunt. So as of the time I'm recording this, they are 33, 31, and 12 with 78 points. They are behind the Sharks, Jets, Kings, and Predators. They have about 6 games left in their schedule. They have Colorado tomorrow, as the time I'm recording this tomorrow, which I will be there, Winnipeg on Thursday, Chicago Saturday, Minnesota Monday, Pittsburgh next Tuesday, and Utah next Thursday. And the Chicago and Utah games are on the road. So Blues playing some meaningful hockey, which gets the fans interested, but I've heard a lot of people online say this is bad for the future because they're messing up the tank, which, at the same time, the Blues have never really been a tank team for 15 years now. I was a baby the last time the Blues were really tanking/rebuilding, and the Blues are not going to go back into a rebuild. I was actually listening to a podcast that had the Blues owner, Tom Stillman, and he mentioned that the plan seems to be that the Blues are doing what he calls a, quote, competitive retool, where they bring in younger players and prospects without actually rebuilding. Which just sounds like it's just a windowless plan that teams in other leagues do. Basically, we're not going to tear it down. We're not going to be completely bad. We're going to be thinking of the future while also competing in the present, which is noble, but it's not the same big retool you've seen a bunch of teams do. And my guess is he doesn't want the Blues to be stuck in a 3 to 5 to 10 year rebuild like a bunch of other teams, like Chicago. Sure, they have Bedard, but they've been stuck in a rebuild for a long time, and who knows when they're going to get out of it. And yeah, Buffalo, they finally got out of it, which we will talk about later in this episode, but I don't think the Blues want to commit to a big rebuild. Now, Alexander Steen is taking over this summer, and he's going to have a lot of work to do. And the Blues do have 3 first-round picks in this draft, albeit they could be in different positions depending on where the other 2 teams finish. They have Detroit's first-round pick that came in the Falk trade. That becomes important later in this episode as well. And they have Colorado's first-round pick, which came from the Islanders in the Braden Shen trade. So, as for me, I did mention I'm going to tomorrow's game against Colorado. I might go to next Tuesday's game against Pittsburgh also. We'll see, but it would be nice if they did make the playoffs. Unfortunately, they would have to play the Avalanche. However, yesterday, Easter, they marched into Denver and stole 2 points, or more. Robert Thomas and Joel Hofer stole 2 points. But it did show the Blues can march into Denver and not be a bunch of pushovers, which that was cool to see. Now they got to do it again in their own house. That would be nice if they made the playoffs. They unfortunately do not control their destination. It would be very funny if they did make the playoffs and they could laugh at everyone else. But yeah.
I'll tell you what, there is nothing like the drive and the motivation of the late regular season St. Louis Blues. Because we saw this last year. It was the same story last year, and it was the same story in 2019. As everyone knows, they went on to win the Stanley Cup that year. Now, at the beginning of the season, when both of our teams struggled out the gate, we were talking on Snapchat, and you said that you trust the Leafs to get it together more than you trust the Blues to get it together. And here we stand. It is April 6th, and the St. Louis Blues and the Toronto Maple Leafs both have 78 points. The difference is the Leafs are eliminated, and the Blues are fighting for their playoffs lives. It's not going to be easy, but they are 6-2-2 in their last 10. They are trending in the right direction. Playoffs is still very much within the realm of possibility for the St. Louis Blues. Like you said, they do hold that regulation win tiebreaker, which is critical. So a lot can change in these last 5, 6, 7 games that the teams in the West have remaining. And it just goes to show the disparity between the East and the West this season. So far, only the Canucks and Blackhawks are out of the playoffs race, which is insane. Meanwhile, the race in the East, there's a lot of teams that are at or near the 90-point mark already, whereas no one in the Pacific and only 3 teams in the Central have reached 90 points, which is crazy. And I also want to talk about my team, the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't even know why I'm saying that. You guys know which team I cheer for. This ain't our first rodeo. Anyway, the Leafs, I am sad to report, are eliminated from playoffs contention, which means the cup drought will officially reach 60 years. 60 years. That is insane. The New York Jets have won a Super Bowl more recently. But anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. This is the first time the Leafs have missed the playoffs since the 2015-16 season, where they finished last in the league with 69 points and drafted Austin Matthews with their first overall pick. And I gotta say, it sucks to see the window close earlier than I thought it would. I believe the Leafs can still pivot. I think that this situation is not irrecoverable. But one thing is for certain, both Treliving and Berube, they were big parts of what was wrong with this team over the last little bit. And let's just rip the Band-Aid off now. Brad Treliving is gone. Thank goodness. He did next to nothing in his time as GM. Well, early on, he made some terrible contracts. Like the Reeves contract was not the way to go. And then this season, he did next to nothing. So a combination of bad contracts and radio silence from him for the majority of the season was just inexcusable, dude. And I'm glad to see him gone. A lot of people are under the impression that the Leafs are not playing up to their full potential. People are starting to think that the Berube coaching method is just not compatible with the roster that the Leafs have. You've said it, other people have said it, and it's abundantly clear that that's been the case. However, I think they're going to hold on to the Berube until the end of the regular season. We're at the point now where the Leafs need to lose every single remaining game. I can't believe in the last episode I said I wanted to beat the Blues. I don't know what I was thinking. We needed to lose that game, and I'm glad we did. But we need to lose out, so hopefully Berube's incompetence can be an asset from here on out. And then I do not expect him to return next season. I think shortly after the regular season ends, we can expect an announcement saying that Craig Berube has been relieved of his duties. And it's a shame. I didn't want the playoff streak to end like this. It's a shame we didn't as much as get to the conference finals, which is such a disappointment. And let's just say the management of this team, they have their work cut out for them over the offseason. That's for sure. Anyway, like I said in previous episodes, the Leafs will keep their pick if they get a top 5 pick. They're currently 7th to last in the league. So theoretically, they could get a top 5 pick now, but it would be good to continue to lose to increase those odds. That's where we stand right now. I'm not happy with Treliving. I'm glad he's gone, and I expect Berube will be next. But it would be beneficial to hold on to him for the time being. As for how things go with our players, that remains to be seen. We don't know what the future core of this team is going to look like, but hopefully we're not out of the playoffs for too long. Anyway, other news in the East. The Buffalo Sabres are back in the playoffs for the first time since 2011, when I was just 8 years old. And I know that this team's rivals with the team I cheer for, but I can't help but be happy for them, I don't think anyone deserves to go 14 years without playoffs hockey. And so to see them doing so well, I am happy for them. Just a little bit, though. It's going to be an absolute clash of the Titans in the first round in the Atlantic. We're going to see Montreal versus Tampa Bay, or Montreal versus Buffalo, or maybe even Tampa Bay versus Buffalo. Either way, any of those three combinations, it's going to be an absolute bloodbath. I can just guarantee that. The Montreal Canadiens, who have Cole Caulfield, who hasn't even entered his prime yet, by the way. And on top of that, one of the deepest prospect pools in the league, they are going to be a scary team for the next little while here. Their window is just opening, and they are going to want it. I'm honestly hoping for Buffalo versus Montreal in the first round because those are two hockey-crazed cities, and it is just going to be an absolute spectacle to watch. I'm looking forward to taking that in. I think that has the potential to be the series of the playoffs, although I don't want to speak too soon. But anyways, what's your takeaway from all this?
So first, I want to mention that Blues-Leafs game, the Maple Leafs looked flat. Completely flat, lifeless. It's like they had just given up. And funny you mentioned that draft lottery. I actually just did a Tankathon draft lottery sim, and in this simulation, the Leafs got the first overall pick. So the Leafs got for some reason the Kings got the second pick, and Vancouver got the third. But in terms of Buffalo, I am excited for Buffalo. I'm glad they finally ended the drought. I honestly see a lot of the 2011-12 Blues in this Sabres team. The 2011-12 Blues, that was the year they truly emerged. They ended it's a shorter postseason drought, but they truly emerged. They won like 100-plus games. They had the third best record in the league, and they even won a series. That was even more exciting. So I think the Sabres have the chance to go deep. It would be very funny if they did make it to the conference finals in the first try before the Maple Leafs even did. That would just be hilarious. It'd be even more funny if they made the Stanley Cup final before the Bills made the Super Bowl. But yeah, I'm proud of Buffalo. I'm checking standings right now. They're tied with Tampa for first in the Atlantic. I think Buffalo actually won tonight, so depending on how it goes, maybe Buffalo snatches the Atlantic, and they would play. I think they would play. Yeah, they played Boston. They would play. It seems like Boston's going to be your first wild card in the East, unless someone leapfrogs them. So it'll be Boston against either Tampa or Buffalo in the first round. But yeah, I'm proud of Buffalo. Now, what we didn't talk about, I want to talk about Pierre-Luc Dubois. I went to that Blues Capitals game also, and in the second? Yeah, in the second, Pierre-Luc Dubois just flipped Robert Thomas over like some WWE SmackDown move, and I believe he got ejected for it. I need to check. I don't know if you heard about it, but
Admittedly, no, I haven't.
Yeah, so Pierre-Luc Dubois, he got a 5-minute match penalty and a game intent ejection for intent to injure for what they say tackling Robert Thomas. However, there was no disciplinary action. Basically, player safety spun the wheel and said, "Now we don't feel like doing anything about it," which who cares? But so I just wanted to bring that up because I was there. Now I think you want to talk about Mr. Gudas.
Well, as you guys know, Radko Gudas absolutely just declared himself public enemy number one in the Leafs fan base. Now, a little backstory here. When the Panthers eliminated the Leafs in 2023 in that Game 5 overtime, there's a very iconic photo of Radko Gudas screaming in Joseph Woll's face. Even though, if I recall correctly, he wasn't even the one who scored the overtime goal, which is just makes it even more weird. Anyway, from that day, there was always some hatred from the Leafs to Radko Gudas. And a few weeks back, when the Ducks were playing in Toronto, Radko Gudas did some pretty blatant, horrible knee-on-knee shenanigans with Matthews, and he's out for the rest of the season now. So if the hatred for Radko Gudas was already existing, then it just got amplified like tenfold. So then fast forward, the Leafs and Ducks played again in Anaheim, and as expected, there was some retribution, but I'm going to be honest, it kind of felt forced, and it wasn't even that big of a deal. or it wasn't even that big of a deal as some people made it out to be. I will say, going into that game, I didn't even care so much about the Gudis stuff. Like, at that point, I was so disconnected from, like, the season and, like, hockey in general. I just lost all enjoyment. All I wanted was for the Leafs to lose. Especially since I want the Ducks to finish first in the Pacific, since, as you guys know, they're my second favorite team. And for a while, it looked like that was going to happen. The Ducks were up 3-1, and then the Leafs just... They, for some reason, decided to get it together, and they came back and won in overtime. I don't know why the Ducks are so terrible every time they play the Leafs. Remember what I said earlier about how the Leafs finished last in the league in 2016? Well, guess what? We beat the Ducks twice that year as well. The Ducks just struggle against the Leafs for some reason. I don't know why. And this is a team that is probably going to make the playoffs for the first time since 2018. And really, they're just going to bottle first in the Pacific like that against a Leafs team that is actively tanking? I just felt like so horrible. I've never felt so bad after a Leafs win before, and I don't know if I ever will again. That was horrible. Horrible game. But yeah, as for the whole Gudis retribution stuff, it actually was pretty overhyped. It did not live up to the hype everyone was giving it. I don't like that we won that game. I don't like Gudis. He does not deserve to be a captain. I don't think I've actually disliked a player like this in a very long time. Why is this guy the captain of the Ducks? I have no idea. But yeah, that and like the screaming in Wool's face, I just think he is the opposite of a classy player, dude. He is like the spitting image of everything that a professional hockey player shouldn't be. Like, I'm not against, like, tough guys, but, like, there's a difference between being a tough guy, which is, like, you know, a lot of the core of what a lot of hockey players are supposed to be, and just being plain dirty and classless. There is a fine line between those two things. It's one thing to, like, stick up for your teammates. It's another to just act completely reckless. So, yeah. Radko Gudas, probably my least favorite player in the league right now. And that's all I can say about that situation.
So first, actually, that 15-16 Leafs team, I actually looked it up, and the Blues actually lost both times to the Leafs that year, 4-1 in both times, which is that 15-16 Blues team was really good. So I don't know why they lost both times to the Leafs. And I forgot to mention this, but I was actually listening to an episode of the Steve Dangle podcast. He was reacting to the Leafs president, Keith Peely. Is he? I believe he's president, or is he?
Yeah, it's Keith Pelly.
Keith Pelly, yeah. Well, he was reacting to his comments, and he did. Steve brought up that Keith Pelly is the president for teams that are all owned by MLSE, which that's a lot of work, and it definitely is. What I heard, his comments were kind of tone deaf, like, "Oh, we didn't expect the Sabres and the Canadiens this year." Like, Buffalo, okay, a lot of us did not expect. But Montreal, they made the playoffs last year. They made moves in the offseason. They have 100 points right now. How did you not expect them? Just very tone deaf. It's like everything is going back to the Harold Ballard era, where the ownership only cares about profit. The team sucks. They're not making the playoffs, and the fans are upset. So, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying. It's like, okay, sure, like Buffalo, I don't even think their own fans expected them to be this good this season. But how did you not think Montreal was going to take a huge step forward this season? Last year, they finished as a wild card team. All right, so that was already an indication that they were making steps in the right direction. Like I said earlier, their prospect pool is so deep. They have elite players, Caulfield, Suzuki. Like, dude, come on. How do you not see them coming? I'm genuinely, like, I wonder if the guys at MLSE actually, like, watch the sport. Like, I hope they do. Like, I would expect, as the president of MLSE, like, sure, I understand that, you know, as the CEO, his main objective is to take steps that will result in profit. I understand that. But when you're talking about a sports-related business, you should be knowledgeable about those sports. Let's do a head count here. MLSE controls the Toronto Maple Leafs and their AHL affiliate, the Toronto Marlies, the Toronto Raptors and their G League affiliate, Raptors 905. They own the Toronto Argonauts of the CFL, and they own Toronto FC and all their affiliated academies. So you would think that these guys would be very knowledgeable about the goings-on of the NHL, the NBA, the CFL, and MLS, right? Because you kind of have to be. It's a lot, I get it. Like 4 teams and associated development camps of 4 different sports. You know, it's a lot on your plate, but like, as the CEO, it's definitely alarming that you could say that you didn't see them coming. Like, you should be aware of these leagues that you're involved in, right? And especially in Toronto, you know, in regards to the Leafs, because Toronto is such a hockey-crazed city, like, they expect better leadership. So that was definitely not good. And I don't know if it's as bad as the Harold Ballard era. I mean, that was, like, disastrous. Just to like paint you a picture here, back in the Ballard era, on center ice at Maple Leaf Gardens, they had both the Leafs logo and the Hamilton Tiger Cats logo, which, for those of you who don't know, Harold Ballard also owned the Hamilton Tiger Cats, which is so stupid because like they play in a different city. They are the biggest rival to the football team that plays in that city. And you're going to paint their logo on second eye? It's not even the same sport. Why would you do that? Why are you promoting rival teams from different sports? That is nonsensical. But anyway, with that mini tangent out of the way, yeah, it's bad right now. It's not as bad as it used to be. But I'll tell you what, if things don't improve in the next little while, this guy needs to step down as CEO. Or he needs to just be overthrown or something, because I don't know how much more of this I can take. But what in the heck am I seeing right now? Okay, you can't see my screen, but the NHL website's tweaking out. Like, you'll see this when this goes up, but like the Pittsburgh Penguins logo, like I'm looking at the standings, right? The Penguins logo is showing like their logo from like pre-2016. You remember that one?
Yeah, I do. It was the more pukey looking gold. I'm on the NHL side right now, and it looks fine to me, but I'm also on the Blues website, and also looks fine, so I'll check it out when the episode comes out.
Yeah, I'm looking at the 25-26 standings, right? Everyone can see. And they're showing the Penguins' old logo, which is probably just a glitch because I was just looking at the 15-16 standings. But yeah, what a weird glitch. And kind of unrelated, I was never a huge fan of that like shade of gold. I think it looked kind of like dull and lifeless. Like it reminded me of like an overcast like industrial area and like one of those post-apocalyptic or not post-apocalyptic but like dystopian future stories, you know. Like it just felt dull and devoid of life. But anyway, side tangent out of the way. Yeah, I completely agree with what you said about like Keith Pelly sounding tone deaf, and that's all I can say about that situation.
Yeah, about that the Penguins gold, that I don't like that either. I'm glad they got rid of it after in 2016. It kind of looks more like, I think it kind of looks like vomit, but I feel like for most of the time, that's what people remember Sidney Crosby for, because he wore that. But Pittsburgh out of the way, what else should we talk about? How about we talk about everyone is getting fired. You talked about Brad Treliving, who got fired. Just tonight, Tom Fitzgerald, former GM of the New Jersey Devils, just got fired. And I heard that a lot of the season is to blame on Tom Fitzgerald, or at least most of it. I don't think he's responsible for were there injuries with New Jersey, but currently New Jersey is 40, 34, and 3, 83 points. They're about to get eliminated real soon. And this will be the they're going to miss the playoffs again. They've only made the playoffs twice in the past, what was it, 10 years, I think? Yeah, I think 10 years. Or even like 15. Yeah, well, either way, New Jersey is not going to make the playoffs, and this was a firing we should have seen coming. And other firings, a bunch of head coaches are getting fired. Bruce Cassidy of the Golden Knights just got fired like a week or two ago and replaced by John Tortorella. And unfortunately, it seems to be working because the Knights are 3-0 at the time, as of the time we're recording this. So if they steal the Pacific, oh, great. And then yesterday, on Easter, Patrick Waugh was fired and replaced by Peter DeBoer. I don't know why Peter DeBoer keeps getting coaching jobs, but he wins Game 7s and he takes teams to the playoffs. Yeah, he'll take your team to the playoffs, but if you have talent, but he does not. He will not win. You won't win a cup with him. He failed in Vegas, and well, he failed in New Jersey and San Jose and Vegas and Dallas. You think after Dallas, the teams would learn, he threw the goalie under the bus when it's not entirely the goalie's fault. But no, the Islanders panicked since they made that big trade for Braden Shen. I think the Islanders should be lucky they didn't trade their first round pick, or else the Blues would be licking their chops. But to each their own. And I think that's most of them that we've gone over. Charlie, what are your thoughts on this? And did I forget anyone?
No, I don't think you forgot anyone, although I might be forgetting too. I will say this, I don't entirely blame teams for, wanting to give DeBoer a chance. He's gotten close. 2012, New Jersey Devils, he coached that team to the finals. 2016 San Jose Sharks, he coached that team to the finals. And prior to this season, 3 consecutive conference finals appearances. And then, actually, it's been 5 in the last 6 years. 6 conference finals appearances and losses in the past 7 years. He's getting so close. They're getting to the cusp. I see why teams keep giving him a chance. He has lots of experience in the playoffs. And like you said, the whole throwing the goalie under the bus thing, I don't like that either. But I don't blame the Islanders for wanting to give him a chance. I hope he doesn't go back to the conference finals because, as you guys probably know, I do not like the Islanders. And right now they're sitting out of a playoff spot. But I think I'd rather see them get in than Ottawa. So we'll see what happens. Meanwhile, John Tortorella. I'll tell you guys one thing. John Tortorella, he is inevitable. Just when you think he's gone, he finds a way to come back. And the Golden Knights have returned to form. Things were going off the rails down the stretch for the Knights. First of all, let's just say they're only in the position they're in because their division is so weak. But playing in a weak division, you're going to get exposed when push comes to shove and the playoffs start. And now they're starting to pick it up. They're getting it together. It is going to be a very tight finish for first in the Pacific Division. And I'm excited to see where that goes. And I'm excited to see if Torts can go on another deep run. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think any of the Pacific teams really have a shot at going to the finals. Maybe Edmonton does because they have that playoffs experience, but they've definitely taken a step back. There's no doubt about it. Goaltending-wise, I think they're actually worse than they have been in the last few years. I think the whole trading Skinner for Jari, I think that was actually a loss for them. I think they're worse with Jari on the team. So, I've been surprised before. I'm not going to talk too soon. I'm not going to go too in-depth about the playoffs, especially when nothing's set in stone. But that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I forgot to mention this earlier when you were talking about the Blues and the Maple Leafs and the spot in the standings. That had to do more with... That was more of an indictment on how weak the West is than how good the Blues are. Since I think we're done talking about who's gotten fired, I'm going to quick wrap it through who's clinched so far on the day. April 6, 2026, about almost midnight. It's almost midnight my time, almost 10 p.m. Pacific, his time. So in the West, Colorado, Dallas, and Minnesota have all clinched. Colorado was actually... It could have clinched the Central Sunday against the Blues, but the Blues stopped them. So I think it's going to be the same thing Tuesday, which I'll be in person. It'll be fun if the Blues stop them again from clinching the Central. I think the Cavs are win anyway, or at least get a point maybe. It would just be funny to see the Blues just stop them. And yeah, no one else in the West has. Someone has to. Would be very concerning if Utah clinches before anyone in the Pacific. But I do want to quickly mention, I could see Utah potentially upsetting whoever wins the Pacific. I could see Utah potentially going deep, taking advantage of that weak Pacific. In the East, only Carolina has clinched in the Metropolitan, although I think Pittsburgh can clinch real soon. Philadelphia, we'll talk more about Philadelphia in a bit. In the Atlantic, Tampa, Buffalo, and Montreal have clinched. That is all who have clinched. Now for eliminations, in the West, just Chicago and Vancouver. Vancouver was the first to be eliminated. Chicago was eliminated I think a few weeks ago, maybe two. And I think Calgary's probably going to get eliminated soon. I think the Blues, with the way they're playing, they may not get eliminated. If they don't make the playoffs, they probably won't, but they might not get eliminated until like the last week of the season, which would be impressive, but yeah, it will still suck. And then the East, the Maple Leafs have been eliminated, along with the Florida Panthers and New York Rangers, and that is all who have clinched or have been eliminated. And Charlie, do you want to bring up anything about either of them?
Well, one thing I love to see is that we're seeing a lot of neck and neck races for the wild card. There are so many teams still in contention. Any of these teams could sneak in the last second and make a deep run. The one I'm watching right now is the Red Wings, because the Red Wings were having a very good season for a while, and people were thinking, yes, the Yzer plan is finally coming to fruition. This is the year the Red Wings finally end their playoffs drought, but now, although it looks like the Red Wings are going to finish with a winning record, so are a lot of other teams in the East. So it looks like despite the great season they've had, they might miss the playoffs, which is crazy. So if I was a Red Wings fan, I'd be nervous right now. Also, it's worth mentioning this might be the first time that both the Red Wings and the Maple Leafs have missed the playoffs in my lifetime. I don't know when the last time they both missed was. I know it was like a long time ago, but yeah, that's crazy. We'll see what happens here. We got Ottawa in the last wildcard spot. The Islanders, Red Wings, Blue Jackets, and Capitals are breathing down their neck. I think out of all those teams, the one I would want to see make the playoffs the most is probably the Blue Jackets. I was hoping for them to make the playoffs last year, and I hope they do this year as well. The Bruins are at 95 points, and they're ahead of the third place team in the Metro, which is the Flyers. So a bit of a weaker division there. If things stay the way they are and the Flyers stay ahead of the Islanders, we could see the Battle of Pennsylvania in the first round. First time those two teams have met in the playoffs since 2018. So we could see a battle of Philadelphia Flyers and outdated logo Penguins for some reason. Out of all the teams in the East, I'm pulling for the Hurricanes to make it to the finals the most. I think it's got to be their time. Like, they've got to get over this Eastern Conference final hump eventually. Like, these guys have to get it done. I'm not going to make any predictions, though. We'll save that for next episode. But that's all I have to say for the wild card in the East. For the West, though, the very weak Pacific Division, that is up for grabs. It's going to be either Vegas, Anaheim, or Edmonton finishing first, which Anaheim finally their young core started to show promise this year. And they were in first in the Pacific for most of the season, even when they had that slump midway through. But I'm hoping they get it together. I hope they finish first. Edmonton and Vegas, if recent playoff trends and regular season trends have shown us anything, I think Edmonton would have that. But again, don't want to make any final predictions right now. And like you said, I think Utah could upset whoever finishes first in the Pacific. Like Ducks versus Mammoth, that will be as evenly matched as it gets. Like, if the Mammoth won, I don't even know if you could really call that an upset, to be honest. Like, yeah, they're seeded lower, but, a lot of statistics point to the Mammoth as being the better team. And all of this to say that I'm getting more and more in favor of the NHL going back to 1 versus 8, because look at how lopsided this is. The third place Minnesota Wild ahead of the first place Edmonton Oilers. Either the Wild or the Stars are guaranteed to go down in round 1, and either the Oilers, Ducks, or Golden Knights are almost certain to go to the conference finals. So that's completely unfair to me, and I think it's really starting to show that there's something wrong with this playoffs format. Like, I know that the whole point of this format was to strengthen rivalries, but I think it's already done that. Can we please go back to the 1v8? Like, I want to see some new matchups. I want to see some interdivision matchups in the early rounds. That would be interesting. I like new matchups in the playoffs. I like seeing teams face teams that they've never played or that they haven't played in a while. I want that to happen. Anyway, like I said, I hope the Blues make a run for the wild card. Would have also been nice to see the Kraken make a run at the playoffs, but looks like that's not going to happen. And all that's important for me now, Leafs just keep losing, Ducks just keep winning. That's all I need to happen.
So yeah, the wild card race is nearing its end. And in terms of, you're talking about the playoff format, you mentioned that in a few previous episodes. An expansion video, I think it was my one in October 24. I made a schedule and a playoff format. I know what I did, I brought back the 1v8, but I think I added like an 8 versus 9 like wildcard series for some reason. Maybe because I had 4 more teams. But also in that format, I had 6 divisions of 6. This could honestly be a future summer episode when we don't have anything to talk about in like July or August. We can just talk about our expansion scenarios and what we would do differently. But I think we're almost ready to wrap this up, but some big news, at least for me and a few other teams. Main Street Sports, which run the FanDuel Sports Network, they are shutting down. And if you are unfamiliar with them, they used to be Bally Sports, which used to be the Fox Sports Sens. This has been a long-standing problem for several years. I am glad it is finally over. I'm curious now what's going to happen now since the Blues do not have an RSN for next year. I am hoping, I've said this before, and I hope it would be really cool if the Blues and the St. Louis Cardinals and Kansas City Royals form their own channel for Missouri teams and possibly use it as an incentive to get a team in Kansas City, so both the St. Louis and Kansas City teams are on one channel. That's what I've hoped, because I've seen a few teams have been together to form their own channels. I hope that does work, because the Cardinals and Royals, both of their broadcasts are by Major League Baseball, so it's going to be interesting. I'm going to be paying attention to see where am I going to watch Blues hockey. Will it be on Victory Plus or some other random channel? We'll have to find out. I don't think you have this problem in Canada, since all the games are on, if I'm not mistaken, they're on either Sportsnet or TSN.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be something to pay attention to. So I think that's about it, at least for me. Yeah, I think that's about it. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, that'll just about wrap it up. I guess in the next episode, we're going to be talking about the playoffs. All the teams will be locked and loaded in their positions, and we will get to the most exciting time of the NHL season, when the weather's starting to warm up. Like, seriously, like, I have my window open in my bedroom right now. It's kind of hot in here. And with the warm weather comes playoffs hockey, so that will be on the agenda for next episode.
All right. For me and Charlie, thanks for watching this episode. We hope you enjoyed, and we will see you in the next episode.